Hello everybody, this is Surf, and today, well not today, maybe over the summer, Stoneworks started a new chapter. Last summer it was Eldham, this summer it's Kylorne, and today we are going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the pre-tribal period, we're going to be talking about the tribal period, and the rest. Originally this video was just going to be about the tribal period. But then I realized that the only thing that really happened during the tribal period were all of the nations coming out with their national announcements, announcing the birth of their nation and stuff. And I was like, I can't have an entire video just of national announcements all saying the same thing. So I decided to expand the scope of the video until all of Kylorne history as a whole. So pre-tribal period, tribal period, and up to the present day. So I hope you enjoy, and let's dive on in. So before we can start talking about the history of Kylorne with the players and the K-National announcements and the player-written lore, we've got to talk about what came before, the pre-tribal period. Now, this is before pretty much anything ever happened. There's some very light lore regarding the pre-tribal period, which you can find in the introduction to the Kylorne tribal period sort of fandom Wikipedia article on the Stoneworks wiki. And what that says is that there were, it's very vague. It's the only way I can describe it. Extremely vague, that there were city-states and population centers and infrastructure, but then there was this crisis period preceding the tribal period where there was all of these natural disasters and undead started coming out of every nook and cranny, and the most developed states sort of began to crumble. The ruins can still be seen all over Kylorne today, but what we have you can imagine as a Bronze Age collapse, but instead of sea people coming in from who knows where, it's undead, famine, natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, etc. This period of instability caused many of the most populated centers of Kylorne to depopulate and become sort of these migratory bands. Now, they were often preyed upon by lots and lots of hostile mobs like zombies and skeletons. However, still others sort of made rounds around Kylorne, being nomads and cartographers and the like. But eventually they began to sort of settle down again and make a life for themselves. Life and civilization began to, those set back, restart. And this is sort of where we find ourselves into the tribal period. So the tribal period itself lasted from June 25th to July 28th, and you'll find the most lore regarding this subject within character updates, because pretty much official claims and nation building wasn't going to be allowed until the tribal period was over. So there's not a lot of maps, or pretty much no maps, from the tribal period itself, and it's sort of characterized by disparate individuals walking around, sort of collecting gear, collecting loot, making small one-person homes. Some people made groups. Some people started forming the foundations of their nation before they were sort of able to go public with it. But all very small-scale stuff. And like I said, the majority of the lore you can find on the tribal period will be found in the character updates. But with that being said, it's not that important, I'd say. Like, if you want to know, like, deep context on what nations are doing and why they're doing it, primarily the decisions of the leaders, I suggest you go and look at the Kylorne character updates, character updates, because that's where you're going to be able to find sort of motivations, I suppose, backstories and motivations. So on July 28th, the tribal period officially ended, and the first thing we saw in the K-National announcements was this whole slew of nation formation announcements. And this is the product of the whole month of people sort of collecting groups and building settlements here and there. And this was sort of something unique and something that I really liked, because what you didn't have, like Rathnear and Eldham, was a small group of people starting in one place and slowly building out. What you had was groups of people forming networks and then starting the nation. You didn't start from the bottom-ish, kind of. You didn't start from like a single holding and then expand to outwards. You sort of had this very faint, unofficial network that came together to form their own nation. And you can see this especially with the island nations around the map, how they have they have those like little city-states that are on all different islands or different parts of the same sort of land mass, but they're disconnected. They're not all together. They're not consolidated. And that is a product of the tribal period. That is a product of that loose network. From this point, we don't see a lot until October 9th, where the orcs and the goblins sort of step out into the public stage with the first sort of document of grand diplomacy. This is the Spirals of Vechdar and Poldemorg, the orcs and the goblins signing an alliance. It is anyone's sort of interpretation on how much power this actually has, or how much influence this actually has, but be that as it may, this is sort of the first step, or the first instance of grand diplomacy, international diplomacy that you got out there. But it certainly will not be the last, and the second instance of this comes very soon after with a much more negative feel to it. This happened the same day as the Orc and the Goblin Alliance and revolved around the town of Tevilim. Helionople had found this place, and or they thought they had found this place, rather, and began to put people in there. They began to maintain it. They began to extract resources. However, soon after, members of the Aruni came in claiming it was theirs, defiling the temple and hurling insults. After this, the sort of Helionople people and their leadership sort of came together into what to do, and they decided to send an ultimatum to the Aruni, initially seeking not for bloodshed, according to their announcement, and seeking a peaceful solution in their favor. The Aruni spokesperson responded to this by saying it was always their land, and they did not know that they had defiled a resting place for the fallen. An attempt to reconcile with the Helionople people were not received well, and the Helionople people gave them this ultimatum to be vassalized and annexed, or war would ensue. That storyline will have to wait for a moment, because there are no public developments until a while later. So let's continue chronologically. This revolves around the Eldari, one of the nations that was sort of formed, announced on the 28th of July. We are now at the 12th of August, and they have gone pretty much inactive, or at least their leadership has. Here we have the nation of Aspaxia, still relevant today, declaring independence from the Eldari. One day later, on the 13th, Wulstand declares independence from the Eldari as well. Here we have sort of the first threshing of inactive nations being sort of carved up by the people that still live there. This is a problem with every part of Stoneworks, be it Rathnear, Eldham, and Kylorne. What you have when you have nations go inactive is sort of people who have been living there forming their own nations because they know that, one, their nation is kind of dead, and two, no one is going to stop them. Now on the 14th of August, we can move right on up to the far north in Osterion, who vassalize their neighbors Ev, and 4 days later on the 18th, vassalize another one of their neighbors, the Calwindern. Now jumping to the 23rd of August, the White Orchid Free State declares independence from Eldari. This is the last state to do so, and I have to believe, is the last sort of holdout of Eldari settlements. If you look on a map, modern day map or map from the time period, you can see that Aspaxia, the White Orchid Free State, and Woolstand are not particularly close to each other. They're close in close proximity in reference to the world as a whole. But if you just take a look at their island, you can see that they aren't bordering each other at all. And this is sort of a testament to the loose networks I was mentioning earlier from the tribal period, how people would make bands, make networks, and put themselves under one banner. However, now that the Eldari is no more, and the people are going their own separate ways, you can see how far these networks are actually able to reach, even more so with these island nations that are primarily on the eastern end of Kylorne, but other places as well. On the 28th of August, the Helionople people and the people of Aruni engage in preparation for a war. However, when they meet, the Aruni decide to bend the knee, at least according to the Helionople accounts, and be vassalized by Helionople. This puts to an end the disagreement between Helionople and the Aruni, and they are formally vassalized. Not too long after, on the 5th of September, Helionople is engaged in another territorial dispute, this time with the island nation of Theros over the town of Transpirarum. Now, this does not go quite as well for the Helionople nation, as on the 7th, 2 days later, they withdraw completely from Transpirarum. In less warlike news, on September 28th, Riverreach holds Kylorne's first tournament, with Jonathan of Elysium being the winner. Shout out to Jonathan. Love Jonathan. And on the 30th of September, the Tsardom of Belovia is formed with the unification of the states of Duce, Belovia, Coer, and Zakat. More drama would ensue on October 12th through the 13th, when Araxes would accuse Asterion of signing a treaty with Jomland that would give them access to a port city that Araxes claims. Asterion responded to this by saying it was all misinformation and they should be quiet, because Araxes had sent armored soldiers into Asterian land and was harassing and insulting the Asterian nation. Asterion stated if this would not stop, there would be further escalation and perhaps a war. So far, this is the most updated on that situation. Araxes has not responded to this. Finally, on the 17th of October, when this video is being written, the Ice Queen of Asterion kills a citizen of Elysium, that being a guy named Emporos. At first, I was very confused by this because I thought Emporos was a title and not a person. I thought the Queen of Asterion had straight up murdered the Emperor of Elysium, but that is not the case. There's just a dude named Emporos. Also on the 17th, the Reliquians have information on a kidnapper who is a man called the Saxon, and he has a partner in crime, and they are going around doing crimes. So beware of a guy named Saxon and his accomplice. They are believed to be armed and dangerous, and the leadership of your nation should be informed if you catch that guy in your land. Be fair warned. And that is all we have so far on the pre-tribal period, the tribal period, and up until the present day. Thus far, these are all of the events that I've found to be notable in Kylorne thus far. But what do you guys think? Discuss about it. Did I miss anything? I want to know about that. And more stuff. More stuff is on the way. Keep an eye out and play some Kylorne. Play some Kylorne. If you're not if you're not in the whitelist yet, I suggest getting in there and moving and shaking in a place that seemingly holds a lot more water. It holds a lot more weight than Eldham or Rathnir, just because it's so procedural and they really make sure that you know what you're doing. And I think this has like a lot of long-term potential specifically. So we'll see. We'll see. See, more videos coming out real soon, and I will see you next time.